Okay, guys. Today we're going to be beginning the process of preparing for your first interview. The interview can be very daunting. It's very nerve-wracking, both for you and the person who's doing the interviewing. Um, so we're gonna work. We're gonna break things up into parts. I researched about 35 questions that come up often in interviews. So we're going to talk about um, the questions that will usually come up and how you should try to address them. Like what one's the reason for the question, and how can we craft a response that's honest, that's going to resonate well. So the first one is probably the hardest, and it gets people off their game if they're not prepared for it. Because one of the reasons, because it's very open ended and broad. It's just okay, without reciting your resume, tell me about yourself. For many people, that's pretty difficult. If you're the product that is being sold, you better know yourself better than anyone else. Now, it's hard to pick the parts of your life that are most important. I mean, you're going to have 20 plus years to talk about. What do they really want here? Well, part of the reason they ask this question is they're buying a little time to gather themselves. They may have just come from a meeting, or may have gotten off a phone call, and now they're shifting gears, and they're trying to um, assess somebody to come and join their team. So they're getting they're trying to get the small talk to start the meeting, to get everybody a little relaxed, and then they're going to get into the nitty gritty of what they're looking for and what you would have to be doing. So the tell yourself thing is a little bit of a chance for them to buy themselves some time, get a little small talk out of the way, before we get to business. So you want to be not scripted, but you've got to be prepared. So what we're going to do is give you some ideas here, and you should try to talk a little bit about past, present, and future. But we're going to go in a little reverse order. You're going to talk about your present. What are we presently working on? If you're in the company already and just trying to move to a different position, or you're working at another job and trying to interview in a different company. So what are you currently working on, or what are you currently studying? What's your current focus? Talk about and try to relate it to what the job is hiring for. Okay, so take things from your present that fits the role that you're trying to get into. Then you go and look into your past a little bit, again, with the focus of give them life experiences that are related to what this new job is about. And then finish the question with, what are you hoping the future? What's your future plan? What's it going to look like? Okay, so try to tie it to the new role as best you can. Now, that should probably take 1 to 2 minutes tops. Do not continue to prattle on aimlessly. So again, we'll go present, jump to the past, then go to the future, all while trying to tie it to who you are, what you're doing, and what you're looking to do. That could help in this current role. If the event is that I am a student, like try to talk about what you're studying currently that relates to the role, or what you've studied in the past that relates to the role, or what you're planning on studying in the future that could relate to the role. These are all ways to tie your experiences to the position that you're trying to get to. If you haven't been studying what's needed for this role, hey, talk about some personal stuff. Like, currently, I'm training for a marathon. I've run a few in the past. I'd like to run a few in the future. It shows that you're goal oriented and willing to put in a hard work to get stuff done. Okay, so even though we're only going over the first 7 questions today, I was going to spend the most time talking about that one. Now, let's talk about another one. Talking about dealing with peers. Give me an example of when you had a conflict with a peer, and how did you resolve it? They're looking for instances where you've shown the ability to work with a team and understand that sometimes teams don't always get along. People disagree, but you still have to get the job done. Now, many of you guys who have played in sports can probably draw from stuff like that. But you could also do it in your peer networks, your social networks, school, you name it. So there's a lot that can be tied to that. But they're looking for people who can keep a clear head, not lose a emotion, not lose control over their emotions, and resolve it, get the job done, and continue moving on. Okay, in our current working conditions, there's a lot of team-oriented work, so they need people who can get along and get stuff done. All right, what's your greatest strength? When somebody's hiring and building a team, one of the things that they're looking for is there's usually on a team there's different roles of different people, and they may be looking for someone who is the time management person. And if that's your strength, lead with it and know it and own it, and give examples on why you think it's your greatest strength. But your greatest strength should be one of the easiest things to talk about. And it's okay to brag a little bit here. Okay. Now moving on to number 4. Please give me an example when you found an error in some aspect of work that others may have overlooked, and how did you handle the situation? Okay, so what we're going at here is again a teamwork type of thing, but it's also a precision and attention to detail. Okay, getting stuff done and getting it done on time is great, but it's got to be done on time, or it's got to be done right, or else you're going to be doing it again. Now, sometimes some people's feelings can be bruised. So describing a situation where, like, hey, I was going back over these numbers. I'm just not getting the same number. Can you show me how this was done, or something like that? That's a good way to approach a different member of your team, to see if maybe in your work you missed something that they had, and hopefully we can at least flush out the situation. But the idea is you want to make the effort to make sure everything is right, without like really, you never want to embarrass a coworker, so you want to pull people off to the side, make sure that you can both get things fixed without, again, hurting anyone's feelings. All right, now, what's your greatest weakness? Okay, now this one is a tough one. It's showing that you have a weakness, but it's not the time to humble brag. Okay, don't say this as, "Oh, I'm too generous. I'm too giving. I work too hard." Those are ridiculous weaknesses. What you want to show is that you take the time to self-reflect, understand what you're not good at, but also try to say, this is what I'm trying to do to correct that. I know when I first started working at an office, one of my weaknesses was typing. I was a two-finger Louie, just banging out on the keyboards. I did talk to my boss about that. He actually steered me to a program. I think it was called like Mavis Speakin'. It's a typing program, and now I can type a lot more fluently. It's a good thing to show I wasn't good at this, but here's what I'm doing to try to get better. Okay, so that's how I would try to frame that question. If time management is not your thing, show apps that you're trying to use, or show that you're trying to work your calendar better. So um, be open and honest. It shows self reflection, but then finish that weakness with, here's what I'm trying to do to get better at that. All right. Now, do you prefer to work under supervision or on your own? You got to be honest about this. And now, without knowing your direct manager, I don't know what kind of a person they prefer to have on their team. Some managers want to be in everyday aspect of their team, checking in constantly, seeing what they're doing. The best manager I had, we would make time to really meet up once every 2 weeks. And at the end of the 2 weeks, he just would say, on these projects, what progress have you made? So I worked well with that. He worked well with that. Many won't, but you have to be honest. Do you want to have someone checking over your shoulder every 5 minutes? Or can you take something, work on your own, and report back with the stages of your progress? Okay. Now, what do you do in your spare time? This is more of a small talk question. Sometimes that'll get thrown in when there's a little bit of a break in the flow. So they want to know, hey, what is this person like outside the office that we're bringing in this team? Is this someone that we're going to want to spend time with a little bit, like maybe go to happy hour or a corporate function together, or is this someone just going to be all business all the time and not really be a lot of fun outside of work? So these are the 7 questions that you're going to start to brainstorm your answer. Okay, it remember, preparing for an interview shouldn't be 15 minutes before the interview. So we're going to start typing these out later in the week. I'm going to put together a Google form where you can put your responses in. You're going to want to get an idea what you want to talk about, but then you're going to smooth it out, pare some of it back, because you don't want to prattle on, you don't want to ramble. It's got to be short, sweet, succinct, and it's got to flow. Okay, without sounding completely scripted. But of course, we are going to script this. All right, guys. There's a lot to consider with interviewing. So I'm going to post a few articles today. One is about some of the interview questions you might get, some of the ways you can handle them. 2 more are about, when you're going to an interview, they say dress for the job you want, not the job you have. So a little bit of a guideline to dressing. In some cases, what you show up with could make or break the interview. If you're underdressed for a financial position, that could hurt you. If you're overdressed for a tech position, that might hurt you as well. Usually overdressing won't hurt you as much as underdressing. And I really shouldn't be one to give you guys fashion advice, which is why I attached 2 articles to give you some idea of direction for dressing for an interview.